Hey, this is Ron Diner, and this is No Home Run, out for another bike ride. You know, bike rides are a great place to think. So if you got something you're trying to figure out, you might try and take a bike ride, because you got a lot of time and you got a lot of time to think. So I was thinking a little bit more about the post I put on No Home Run about sewers and stadiums. And what I was thinking about was, why is it that our city council people voted the way they did to replace this stadium you can see over my shoulder and spend $1.6 billion of our money, when as far as I could tell there was no logic or reason to do it. You know, I was trying to think about, if logic and reason is not the reason you make a decision, what is it? I went on ChatGPT, great place to get information. I asked it, believe it or not, it wouldn't give me an answer. Maybe it doesn't want to get involved. But here are my thoughts. If you don't operate on logic and reason, what is it? Is there something in it for you that's not in it for what should be your concern if you're a city councilman? Are you getting paid? And I'm not suggesting any of these city councilmen who voted against it are getting paid. Are you ignorant? And I don't mean that in a really nasty way. I mean, do you really not understand the facts? What is it? I'm not sure I understand, but at the conclusion of this little video, I'm going to suggest that if you're in agreement with me, you got to contact these city councilmen and you got to ask them the same thing. Because more big decisions are coming up, and we can't have them operating without logic and reason. So let me put this in a little context. How did I get involved with this thing in the first place? Well, what happened was I attended a lecture by a guy who was talking about the proposed deal, and I heard a few of the facts. So I decided, what would I do if I was a city councilman? Or another way to look at it, what if I owned the city? So in both cases, the way I evaluated it was based on the fact of what are my responsibilities. And I'm suggesting my responsibilities, whether I owned the city or I was a city councilman, is to do what's right for the citizens. What matters to make life better for everyone. So I evaluated the facts. So let me give you some details. The stadium deal was going to cost more than $1.6 billion of city resources. How do you get to that number? First, the city was going to borrow the money to pay for its share of the stadium, some $300 million, and it was going to put in the infrastructure for another $100+ million. But the city doesn't have that money, so the city would have to go out and borrow it. And when you add in those total costs, the total cost for the borrowings for that phase of the operation was going to be some $700 million. Second, the city was going to, once the stadium got built, it wasn't going to share in any of the revenue from the stadium. The team could put a name on that building, a big company, get a lot of money. What's a share to the city? Zero. What about anything else going on in the stadium? Tickets, TV revenue. How much does the city get? Zero. The city got zero. Now, at the same time, it's giving them this huge piece of land that could otherwise be sold. And if that land was sold, not only would it be generating revenue from the sale, it would also generate a lot of taxes. The estimate is that if another big building of any kind, or houses, or anything you got, was built on that total property, the total amount of real estate taxes the city would have got over 30 years would be $400 million. So now we're up to $1.1 billion. And then you got the land. This is a big piece of land. Let me just look around here. This huge property here. There's 86 acres here to be developed. The estimates are that with what's going on in the neighborhood, all these buildings, people moving here, this land is worth at least $500 or $600 million more than what the team was going to pay for it. The deal provided the team was going to buy this land for $100 million, and they could pay for it over 20 years. Are you kidding me? It was like giving it to them for free. So you take $700 million in the cost to borrow the money, including interest, $400 million in taxes, and at least $500 million more in the value of this land, and you get to $1.6 billion. It's probably more like $2 billion is what the costs are. So now, what you got to do, at least from my perspective, is what's the return to the city? As I've already said, there's no return from the stadium because we don't share any of the revenue from the stadium. So where are we going to get our money back? The money was got to come, you would have to say, from all the businesses that are going to move here and all the tourists that are going to come here because of this stadium. And all you have to do is what I did. Look at all of the studies that have been done to see that stadiums don't drive economic growth and they don't bring tourists. But you really don't have to even have a study to really think about it logically from my point of view. Why is a business going to move here because there's a baseball stadium? If I own a business someplace in the country, I'm going to say, ooh, I'm going to move to St. Petersburg, Florida because there's a baseball stadium. That's really going to be important to the success of my business. Come on, give me a break. And how about tourists? This baseball is played this summer. It's hot. I know that's not great for the Rays at the moment. I went to their game yesterday over in Steinbrenner. It was hot as could be. I almost wanted to leave after one inning. People aren't coming here to watch baseball, especially in the summer. And 30 years worth of poor attendance, or 27 years, shows that that ain't the case. So then look at the property. What's the alternatives? As I've said, one street away, right over there, another street over, First Avenue Central. There's a huge number of restaurants. Look at downtown, all that's going on here. Look at the pier. Look at everything that's going on. What's bringing people here? We've got all kinds of activities. We've got beaches. We've got museums. We've got all kinds of cultural activities. So we don't need to worry about bringing people here. And because we have so many people coming here, this property is primed for development. It could be homes. It could be businesses. It could be restaurants. We could maybe try and go get the Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa that wanted to come before, and we turned down to come here. And of course, there's affordable housing. And with all that control over this big piece of property and its development, there'll be all kinds of job opportunities as well. So, why did 5 city councilmen vote yes to spend this $1.6 or $2 billion when, as far as I can see, there's no logic and reason? I don't understand. I already mentioned about, in my last post, about how Copley Gertis and Brandy Gabbard seem to be real concerned with the $5 billion that we've got in need to spend on infrastructure for sewer and water repairs, considering we had these 2 huge storms. And now I see that there's also information that says the city is worried about how it can afford to its budget. It's going underwater. You know, I don't want to pick on these people, but when the city was voting to borrow the money to pay for the stadium, they had a meeting, and Gina Driscoll, one of our already city councilmen who seemed to me in favor of the stadium, said, no, I'm not going to vote to approve this until I see that the city's got the money to pay for all the stormwater and sewer needs to help all the people in her district that got flooded out. And she voted no. And she said, before I vote yes, I want to see that information. And at the next meeting, she never asked at all about whether the information was there. She never got the information. And she voted yes for the stadium. I don't get it. I wrote her a letter and I said, what information did you get? And as best I can tell, what she got back was, I got assurances that we can take care of things. Well, clearly we don't and couldn't take care of things. So where is she coming from? Not to be picking on every single one of these people who voted no, but I guess I'm doing it, is Deborah Fix-Sanders. You know, before they voted on this deal in any way, I was asked to attend a meeting of a group here in town, and so was Deborah Fix-Sanders. I spoke first. I talked about the facts that I talked about earlier on here, about the 1.6 billion. I talked about the fact that there's no indication or logic that a stadium brings tourism or that it brings economic growth. And I talked about the cost to the city. When I got done speaking, she got up. First thing she said was, a lot of what you just heard was not true. I don't get it. Later on, after she spoke, and they never did give me a chance to try and refute what she said, someone in the audience said, to her, can you tell me 2 things that Mr. Diner said that aren't true? And at the end of the day, she just changed the subject. I don't get it. Another guy that I had spoken with before there were any votes was Ed Montanari, who's not on the city council. He said to me when I met with him, I really care about the city. I am concerned that we have enough money to take care of all of our needs. I want to make sure that we have money to fix the storm water damage and flooding. I want to make sure we have reserves in the future. But then when I said to him, well, what's your position on the stadium? He said, do you know how hard it was to get the raise here? And then he voted yes. I don't get it. There don't seem to be any logic or reason in why he did what he did either. I must be a little bit naive. Why do these people do what they do? The best I can see is that we can try and have an influence on them. You know, I was listening to Bill Maher's podcast. You may not like Bill Maher. He's a little rough around the edges. But one of the things he said today, because he was talking about issues with our current president, whether you like him or not, and he was saying is if you don't like what's going on, you can't just cry about it, complain about it, you got to do something about it. And what he said and what I'm saying is call your city councilman, go meet with them and say, look when you start to make decisions in the future on important things, I need you to operate with logic and reason. I don't know where you came from and why you did what you did, but there's got to be better reasons. So, read my post about sewers and stormwater and why people are doing what they're doing and voting for stadiums, and call your city councilman or write them. Or go to nohomerun.com and there's a place where you can click on a link and write a letter and I'll send it in for you myself.